Hi lovely crocheters, it's Janie here again to let you know that Emma has done the video for part 9, I think this is 9 now, of my sunshine and showers blanket. This part is here, it's got lots of bubbles on it, I'm sure you can see that. It's puffs, actually, puff stitches, and I designed this to kind of represent the sleety, snowy weather in London, North London in January. That's exactly how I feel about the weather, but there is always a little chance of snow. We might get some snow in January here. We actually rarely do it. Often we get sludge, we get slushy stuff, grey slushy stuff, which is what I've kind of used the colours down here to represent. So there might be some snow, but mostly slushy weather for us here in North London. Not sure what it does where you are, but you could always use a different colour if you feel it's not going to be quite as grey as it will be here. So the video that you're about to watch has been made by Emma, and she's going to show you how to make these puff stitches and work through this part of the sunshine and showers blanket, which is part 9. You can download the patterns from the website or Ravelry if you want to follow it along as a crochet along. We have done videos for all the parts up till now, so we've done them from May onwards. You can go back through the YouTube videos and find them for some guidance, and it's an ongoing project, so you can dip into it whenever you want. The patterns will always be there and the videos will always be here. So I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Emma, and I hope you enjoy working through this part of the pattern.
Welcome to part 9. We're going back into the lovely sort of cooler colours. We came out of the warm pinks and mauve, and we're back into sort of greys and blues to indicate that cold time of year here in the UK, January. So part 9 is January here, and it is extremely cold today, making school run even more perilous than normal, like an ice skating rink. And we've got some familiar stitches, but also these might be new to you. These lovely puff stitches, they give such a lovely texture to the work. After I finished making this sample piece, I thought I immediately must go and make a cowl for these cold days, because they're so lovely and sort of snuggly and great. So if you've not done those before, they're super easy to do, and they give, like I said, this wonderful texture. So don't forget, we work 2 pieces each time. So this is my completed sample piece to show you what we're going to be doing, and I'm going to be working my second piece now along with you, and we're going to start from this grey and work upwards. So let's get going. Right, we're going to start this part with graphite yarn if you're using the original colours, and we're starting on row 49. As usual, we're going to undo. You might have your stitch on a stitch marker, or you could just be ready to carry on from your last part, or however it is. But I have helpfully made things difficult for myself by sort of pulling my yarn through, because what we need to do is we need to get our stitch back to the point where we can change yarn colour. Okay, so that's at the point where there are 2 loops left on the hook. I'm using my 4.5mm hook for this row. So there we go. I've got the sort of last stage of the last stitch ready. You can see there's 2 loops on the hook, and I'm just going to pull through with graphite with the new colour. Whoops, ready to go. Okay, so we're going to turn the work. And what we're going to be doing to start with, you will recall we worked this sort of lovely lattice or trellis, I think I called it, didn't I? Trellis work. And we've got to get ourselves back to a point of solid rows. So we're going to fill in some of those chain spaces that we've made. So nice and easy, using double crochet, UK terminology here. Using double crochet, we'll fill some of those in. So let's have a little look about what we need to do. We're going to start with 1 chain, which won't count as a stitch. If you recall, we never sort of count that as a stitch on a double crochet, or rarely. And we're going to put 1 double crochet into the stitch at the base. It sort of says next stitch, but it's the stitch at the base of the chain. So did you see that? Right at the base of the chain. That shouldn't be unfamiliar to you. We've worked that a fair few times before. Okay, we're now going to go 1 double crochet into the next chain space and then 1 double crochet into the next stitch 7 times. Okay, so nice and simple. That's number 1. So just going into the chain space and then into the next stitch 7 times. That's number 2. Okay, so we're on our 7th repeat. So there goes our double crochet into the chain space and a double crochet into the stitch next to it. Now I'm going to stop there because you will see that we've hit one of the little blocks that we made on the last part, and those blocks were made up with 3 trebles all in a row. So I have now got 2 trebles where I can just put a double crochet into the top. So there's no chain space there, so that sort of disrupts our repeat a little bit, but only very simply. So we just do 1 double crochet into the next chain, into the next stitch, and 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and then we're off again with that repeat, which is 1 double crochet into the chain space, 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and this time we're going to do that 9 times. Okay, so it's nice and straightforward, not too much to worry about, not too taxing. We're just making that sort of solid edge or solid row of double crochet to build our next part on. Okay, I'm on the very last section where I'm doing that repeat 7 times. Okay, so I've started from my little block here, and my pattern repeat starts here. So it's 1 double crochet in the chain space, 1 double crochet in the stitch, so 7 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on number 5 here. I just wanted to show you this because of the last repeat. So that's number 6. So it can be a little confusing because we've got this 3 chain or 4 chain that we started the last row with. Now you need to treat that as a chain space and a stitch. So I'm going to put 1 double crochet in that chain space, and then I'm going to put the last stitch, the very last double crochet, into the top of those chains. All right, so don't miss those last 2 things because it will throw your stitch count out for sort of future patterns. And I'm telling you that because guess who did that? Yes, it was me. So that's row 49. It's created, like I said, a nice even straight line ready for us to work any future patterns into for this part. We're not changing colour for this next row. So for row 50, it's very straightforward. It is a straight double crochet row all the way across. So that's always lovely, isn't it? Possibly a good idea to check, or a good time to check your stitch count. Make sure it's all where it needs to be. If you need to pop a little extra double crochet in somewhere, this is a good place to do it, a good row to do it on. So I've done my turning chain. Don't forget to put your first stitch into the stitch at the base of that chain, and then it's just a really straightforward double crochet row. Here we go, nearly finished. And what we're now going to do on the last stitch is change the yarn colour to cream. So before I do that, what we're doing, let me just tell you, is we're mirroring what's going on here. All right, so we've done the graphite, which is what was at the bottom of the snowflake piece, and we're now going to work this curved cream section. Okay, so that's, we're just having a little sort of mirroring to this point, and then we'll change into the puff stitches and whatnot. So just really balances that design beautifully. So I'm just going to cut the graphite yarn. I've got the cream yarn ready to go. I'm going to pull that through, and joy of joys, we're now on row 51, and row 51 is another lovely soothing row of double crochet. So turn the work, and don't forget, little reminder, make sure you put your first stitch, sorry, do 1 chain, there's your turning chain, and make sure you put your first stitch into the stitch at the base of the chain. That's all you really need to know about this particular row. It's just a nice row of double crochet all the way along. So I won't make you watch me do that, because even though I've got a much shorter piece than you, I am still painfully slow. So I'll get to the end and we'll have a look at what happens next. Okay, last few double crochet stitches to bring us to the end of row 51, and we're not changing colour, so I completed that last stitch, and I'm going to turn the work and change to a 4mm hook. So there are quite a, there's a bit of backwards and forwards with the hook sizes on this one, so do pay attention to that. So I'm changing to my 4mm hook, and we're now going to start to create the curved cream piece. Okay, so that's why we've changed to a smaller hook, because we've got taller stitches. Right, so we've got a pattern that we've encountered before. We're going to start with tall and come down to short and go up to tall and down to short and so on. So it's familiar because you've already done it, but let's just remind ourselves how that works. Right, so we're going to start by making 3 chain, 1, 2 and 3, and that will count as our first treble, which means this time we miss the stitch at the base of those chain. All right, we're going to make 1 treble into the next stitch along, so not the base of the chain, the next stitch along, there's our 1 treble. Those are our tallest stitches for this pattern. And we're now going to come down in size to half trebles, and we're going to make 2 of those, so one in each of the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 and there's 2, and we're going to come down in size even more now with double crochet stitches, and we're going to do 3 of those, so 3 of the shortest stitches. That's 1, 2 and 3. All right, so you can see we've created a slope, can't you? So we're now going to start going back up the other side of that slope with our half trebles. Now with our half trebles, we always just do 2 of them. So there's 1 and there's 2. And now we are back into trebles again. And with our trebles on our main part of our blanket, they'll be in 3s. So the tallest and the shortest stitches are in 3s. So the trebles and the doubles. And the half trebles, where we're filling in with the half trebles, we're doing 2s of those. All right. So I'm on my trebles now. I need 3 of them. 1, 2 and 3. So we're creating that lovely curve. Down we go the other side now with 2 half treble. There's 1, there's 2, and right down to the bottom with 3 double crochet. So remember, where it's the shortest stitch you do 3, where it's the tallest stitch you do 3, and we fill in the middles with those half trebles, which we do in 2. So there's 1, there's 2, and here come the tallest stitches, the trebles, 1, 2 and 3, and so on. So let's just have a little look. You can see that lovely gentle curve we're creating with this pattern, and you're going to continue that all the way across. And when you've finished your repeat, we finish slightly different at the end, and I'll show you that when I get there. Okay, so I'm now doing my last I've just completed my last repeat. So now I'm going to come out of a repeat. If you check the pattern, we're just told how to do this last little bit outside of the repeat. So 3 double crochet, I've already done 1 there. 1, 2 and 3. 2 half treble. 1 and 2. And the only difference is, instead of doing 3 treble at the end, we're just doing 2. Okay, so here's 1 and here is 2. We don't change colour. So there you go. So if we look at that, we've got that really lovely curve. Now, if we did have lovely snow in the UK, you could look at that as one of those lovely sort of snow banks, but we haven't at the moment, just a lot of ice. So that was row 52. We're back to the 4.5mm hook now for 53, and we are going to just put 1 double crochet all the way across. So just be mindful with those of making sure you put your first stitch into the stitch at the base of the chain, and your last stitch, I'll show you when I get there, goes into the top of a beginning chain. So all the way across with a double crochet, and I'll just remind you when we get to the end about where to put that last stitch. Last few double crochet, and just make sure that you find that beginning chain that we started with on the previous row and put 1 double crochet into the top of those sort of 3 chain. It's really easy to miss that. For some reason the cream is not so easy to see, but that could just be me because I'm working on a white background. I don't know. Okay, so just don't forget that last stitch because it will obviously throw your stitch count out. Now then, that was row 53, and we're now changing to the lovely blue at last. We're starting, the first of the blues will be the storm blue. And so I'm going to pull through my last pull through with storm blue. I've cut the cream yarn and we are ready to go on row 54. So I'm going to turn my work. And the first thing to pay attention to is we're going to change the hook again. So 4.5 is going, and 4 is going to take its place. A slightly smaller hook again. Now, row 54 is really great because it is just basically that curved row, row 52, that curved cream row we've already done, but with the storm blue. And what we're doing with this is we're sort of filling in the curve. So we're making the curve where we've got our tallest stitches, we will be putting the shortest stitches, and where we've got the shortest stitches, we'll be putting our tallest stitches. So we're sort of filling in the curve by doing the equal and opposite stitch, if you like. So we're going to do 1 chain, and we started and finished that curved row with the cream on the tallest stitches, which means we're going to start and finish the curved row with the storm blue on the shortest stitches. So I'm going to start by putting 1 double crochet into the stitch at the base of that chain, and then a 2nd double crochet. And if you remember, we sort of started and finished with 2s instead of 3s, didn't we? So there's my 2 shorter stitches. I'm now going to do 2 half treble. So it's the same pattern, all right, the same pattern, 2 half trebles and then 3 treble. So familiar, and we will just work our standard pattern, our standard curved pattern, all the way across this blanket. And we should, with a fair wind, be finishing with the shorter rather than the taller stitches. So let's see what happens. I will work across doing our normal pattern. So here we go, 3 double crochet. Don't forget we do 3 of the shortest and 3 of the tallest, and 2 of the half trebles in between. So that was the 3 double crochet. Here's the 2 half treble. Here comes the 3 treble. 1, 2, 3, and we're coming down the other side with the 2 half treble. 1, 2, and there we go, we're back to our double crochet again. So all the way across, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, I'm on my last repeat now. So there go my 3 treble, 2 halves, 1, 2, and that leaves us 2 stitches to do the last 2 double crochet. We don't change colour on this, so I'm going to finish this and show you. Lovely. So you can see what's happened is we've sort of created pretty much, we've gone back to creating a flat edge because we've filled in the cream curve with the blue curve. It's so clever. I love that. In fact, I quite fancy doing in my imaginary world where I actually finish projects. quite like the idea of doing a blanket like that, where you've got a sort of waves filling in. Anyway, it's never going to happen, is it? Let's just enjoy this, Emma. Right, so that was row 50, what was that, row 54. And we're going to finish with the storm blue by doing another row of double crochet. So I'm going to turn the work. I'm ready with my 4.5mm hook. Turn the work, pop the 4.5mm hook in, and off I go. Just one double crochet in each stitch all the way across. I'll see you at the end. I'm not finished that one because we're going to change colour, but you can see nice neat curves. Lovely flat top across or straight edge across the top, and we're going to move on now to petrol, and I'm excited about this because it means we're about to start making the puffs. Okay, so pull through with petrol on the last stitch, cut the end of storm blue, turn the work, and so we are now up to row 56, and we're back to a 4mm hook, so back to the smallest hook, and we are going to start making puffs. So I'm going to show you from the get-go how to make them. You have got that written description in your pattern to remind you if you forget, but once you get going on these, you can actually sort of go along a fair old clip, really, even me. So here we go. We're going to start one chain just as normal, all right, one double crochet into the next stitch, and by that we mean the one at the base of your chain. Just giving my ends a little pull there, and one chain, and we're going to miss the next stitch across, and we're going to make our puff in this one. So that's going to be our pattern. One chain, skip a stitch, make a puff, but I'll remind you of that as we go. Now, to make a puff stitch, you're going to put your yarn around your hook, insert your hook into the stitch where it needs to go. So we're skipping this one and we're going into that one. Pull up a loop, so you've now got 3 loops on the hook. Okay, I'm going to do that again. So yarn around the hook. We're not doing anything with those loops yet. Yarn around the hook, back through the same stitch, pull up a loop. So I've now got 5 loops on the hook, and I'm going to do that one more time. So yarn around the hook, back through the same stitch, pick up the yarn, pull up a loop. So now, I know it's a bit sort of fluffy, but there are 7 loops on that hook, 7. And I'm going to pick up my yarn and go through all of them. All right, just pull them all the way through, and you will see it's created this lovely sort of fat little stitch, which is beautiful. All right, so that is making a puff. So one chain, skip the next stitch, and we'll make a puff in the next one. So let's do that together again. So yarn around the hook, hook through the stitch. So we've skipped that one, we're going into this one. Pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, do nothing. Yarn around the hook again, hook through the stitch, pull up a loop, 5 on the hook, do nothing. Yarn around the hook, back through the stitch, pull up the yarn, 7. And we're going to put a yarn over and pull through all of them at once. And there's our second puff. So I'm going to do one more because I just want to say to you about trying to keep the sort of hook at the same height as what you've already done, because you want to keep nice even puffs. Nobody wants uneven puffs. Yarn around the hook, skip a stitch, into the next stitch, pull up a loop. So my hook is sort of sitting across the top of what I've already made. So it's a good gauge of how tall I need to keep those stitches. You'll find your rhythm, don't worry too much. Yarn around the hook again, pull up, keeping those loops nice and loose, and one more time. So you've just got to remember, you've got to repeat that action until you get 7 loops on the hook. Yarn around the hook and pull all the way through 3. Okay, and we're starting to get this nice little row of puffs, and that is going to be our pattern all the way along. We're going to miss a stitch, make a puff, miss a stitch, make a puff, and you can see once you get the hang of it, you can make those quite quickly. Okay, and that is completely joyful. I think you're going to love these. So go have fun, make your puffs, and let's regroup at the end and have a discussion. Right, I've now got 4 stitches left, and when I've got 4 stitches left, I've got one more puff to make. So I'm missing the next stitch, putting the puff in the next one along. 2, 4, 6, 7, and 1 chain. Okay, now I'm not going to put a puff into that last stitch. I'm just going to put a double crochet in there. Okay, and that completes. Look at them, aren't they just delicious? I love these. I really love them. So that's very lovely, isn't it? So check your pattern, make sure you've got the right amount. You know, it's the beginning and the ends that will throw people out. They'll either put one too many or one too few. So keep an eye on that. So that was row 56. Let us turn our hook. There's no change to turn our hook, turn our work. There's no change to hook size or yarn colour. And for row 57, we're going to make another row of lovely puffs. So beautiful. We're going to start with 3 chain on this row because we need to bring our hook up a little higher than a double crochet will give us. So 3 chain, that's going to count as a treble. Now we have got at the very beginning here a chain space. All right, so do not miss this chain space. That is where our first puff is going to go. That will throw out numbers if you miss that one. So first puff going in there, 1 chain, and then from now on the puff stitches are just going to go in the chain spaces from the row before. So lovely, nice and easy. Same pattern, 1 chain, 1 puff, all the way along. And you're building this nice, this is what made me think, gosh, wouldn't this be nice in a cowl? Because it's got this lovely sort of filling in the gaps feel to it, that just works so well with crochet stitches and puff stitches. Sort of a nice alternative to the granny treble, isn't it? Or the granny cluster. Sorry, thinking out loud. We'll see you at the end. Right, last couple. Okay, and I'm going to make sure to put my last puff stitch into that last chain space. And then I have 1 chain, and I'm going to put a treble into that very last stitch. Now I'm not going to complete the stitch. Let's just have a look at what we've got so far. I love them. Do you love them? I love them. And great news, we're changing colour to graphite. But if you are a bit of a fan of puff stitch like me, you'll be delighted to know we're going to do another row with graphite. So I'm pulling through graphite. We're still sticking with the 4mm hook. I'll turn the work. Okay, now we're ready to go. And we're now on row 58. And we are going to work a final row of puff stitches. So we're just going to do a double crochet here. We've sort of alternated between double and treble. We're going to do a double crochet here. So I've done my 1 chain, and my double crochet goes into the stitch at the base of the chain. Just give everything a little tighten up. Right, I'm going to miss this puff stitch. Oh, sorry, I'm going to make 1 more chain. So I've made a double crochet and I've now made a chain. That's going to hop me across the top of that puff stitch. All right, so just to reiterate, 1 double crochet, 1 chain. And my first puff stitch is going to go into that next chain space. And then it is just as we've worked before. 1 chain, puff stitch into chain space all the way across, and this is just moving into the graphite colour. And this does put one in mind actually of those sort of slushy bits that you get you get along the side of the road, but in a very beautiful way. Sort of puts a very positive spin on them, if that was if that was Jane's inspiration, I'd much prefer this than those lumps of slush. So all the way along, and I'll see you at the end. Here we go. Last puff stitch. And I'm just going to put a double crochet into the top of that treble. Okay, so here we are with our 3 rows of beautiful puff stitch. We've got 2 in petrol and 1 in graphite, and I keep doing this because they are so, I've actually stretched them. Can you see what's happening? What's happening to my edges? Don't worry, it will block out, it will block out. But it feels so nice. And what I've really loved about these making puff rows, and I know I've only got short pieces, but I found the actual action of making those stitches so relaxing. You get into such a nice rhythm. You can go along and there's not a complicated repeat to remember. And I don't know why, just found that stitch one of the most relaxing to do. It's very odd, isn't it? If you haven't found those relaxing, don't worry, because we're about to sort of dip back into double crochet, so that might be a bit more up your street. So on the last pull through of this row, we're going to change our yarn colour to grape, lovely grape, and turn the work. Okay, so we're ready to go. Because we're working the smaller stitches, the double crochet, we're going to move on to our bigger hook. So say goodbye to 4mm for now, and back in with 4.5. Now obviously double crochet itself isn't too much of an issue, just want to show you where to put those stitches, because we've got sort of a complicated stitch on the row before, so we just need to get us back to that nice straight edge, blank page, ready for our next part. All right, so we'll start off as usual with 1 chain, and we will put our first double crochet into the stitch at the base of the chain. So everything is anchored. I haven't sewn in my ends this time, I will do that. Everything is anchored and we are ready to go. Right, so we're now going to do 1 double crochet into the next chain space, which is between our double crochet and our puff. All right, so we've got 1 double crochet right at the beginning, right in the base of our chain, and 1 in the chain space at the very edge of that puff. Okay, so we don't want to put any more chain spaces or anything in. So what we're going to do, we're just going to skip that puff altogether and come to our next chain space, and to make our numbers back up, we'll be putting 2 double crochet into the chain spaces, and that's all you're going to do all the way along. Just every chain space, fill it up with 2 double crochet all the way along. Okay, until we get to the other end, and I'll show you what we do when you get there. So nice and relaxing, but I'll probably be asleep, won't I, by the end of this? Nice and relaxing all the way along. See you at the end. Okay, along we go to the very last chain space, which is there. And then we're going to finish by putting 1 double crochet into the last stitch. Ta-da! And we are done. We are done for part 9, and it's so pretty. I know I always say this, but it's such a joy. This is a sort of lovely sampler blanket, going through all the seasons. And as you make them and you think about how Jane has described how she was thinking about each piece and the inspiration behind it, I think it's lovely because you can relate those experiences to your own in those different months of the year. And it'd be interesting to hear from our community who aren't in the Northern Hemisphere, how their seasons can relate to these different pieces. How do you interpret them to fit along with your weather? Maybe, I don't know. Getting very philosophical. It's the relaxation of those puff stitches. Anyway, that is it for part 9. Put that last stitch on a holder if you want to, if you're not moving straight on to part 10. Don't forget, you have to do it all twice, don't you? So there is the piece we've just worked through together, And here is the piece that I'd already completed. So don't forget, you must do 2 pieces because we're going to join them together to make that blanket at the end. So thanks for watching and see you in a month.